Do you want to get the best possible preparation for the AZ-900 exam and pass it with flying colors and with a lot of confidence? Then this is the right course for you. And do you also want to get the best practical experience in Azure as well? Then this is also the right course for you. Hi, my name is Nikolai. I'm a BI consultant and data scientist, and I've been working with many companies with cloud technologies around the world, and I'm super happy to being your instructor in this course. In this course, we are covering all of the requirements for the AZ-900 exam, which is the perfect certification to get started with Azure. Like this, you can prove your knowledge, share that certification on your LinkedIn profile, and also get that competitive advantage to stand out from the crowd as a job seeker or for your next promotion. So, what is this course about? In this course, we have two separate goals. First, if you take this course seriously, you will have the best possible preparation to clear the exam, and you will be confident when you take the exam to pass it with a high score. Because we cover every single topic of the exam, and this course is always up to date. So you can be sure to have the latest required knowledge. And there will be a lot of quizzes and practice tests, so you can be sure about your knowledge. And the second goal of this course is to actually get you started practically with Azure. The exam is a theoretical one, but you want to be able to work with Azure in real life. That's why we have a ton of demos. This is learning by doing and will not only help you to remember things more easily for the exam, but it will actually give you the practical knowledge to get started with Azure. This course is ideal for you if you have never worked with Azure before, or if you have worked with Azure just a little bit and now you want to get a real solid foundation working with Azure. And of course, first and foremost, if you want to get that Azure Fundamentals certification. This course is designed to be your roadmap to clear the exam, get this certification, and get the practical foundational knowledge in Azure. In this course, you will get lifelong access to everything in this course. This is 8 hours of highly condensed and fun video materials, all of the slides of the course so you can read through them anytime at your own pace, a ton of quizzes, including a practice test so you can evaluate your knowledge and be sure about it. Also, you get expert level support whenever you feel stuck. And all of that backed by a full 30 days money back guarantee, no questions asked. Get started now and acquire the most up-to-date skills, which is the best way to set yourself apart from the crowd. And to get all of those benefits with this course, enroll now, and I'm looking forward to seeing you inside. Hello and a very warm welcome to this course. I'm so happy that you're here, and therefore in this lecture we just quickly want to talk about a few very important points about the exam and about this course so that we can make sure that you get the best out of this course. First of all, what is the AZ-900 exam and why should we take this? AZ-900 is the exam that allows you to get the Azure Fundamentals certification. This is the most foundational certification you can achieve in Azure, and therefore it is the most taken one, and this is the one that I recommend definitely to take in the beginning, which is a great door opener into the world of Azure. So this is how this exam and this certification fits into the world of certifications in Azure. And therefore it is a great starting point to all of the additional certifications. This is the first one that you should take, and with this you set yourself up for great job opportunities. This certification is certifying your knowledge, and therefore it will act as a door opener to a job with great opportunities and also a job that is future proof. This is the main benefit of taking this exam, which allows you to step into this world of cloud computing, which has so many great opportunities. And now, what is covered in this course and in the exam? You will find this link, so we can just open up this link, which you will also find if you just search for AZ-900 exam. You find this is the first link that is not an ad, and there you will find this is the overview page of the exam, and here you also find the study guide. If you open this one up, you will see just an overview of all of the relevant skills for this exam. So you will see in exact detail what exactly is expected in the exam, and of course we in the course will cover every single relevant topic for the exam, and I will always make sure that everything in the course is up to date so that you can learn everything that is needed for the exam in just one place, with of course many quizzes, questions, demonstrations. This is all covered in this course. The style of the question is in general not very complicated. It is more basic, but there are many different services, so there's a lot to remember. And what we need to understand is that the questions are more about understanding the services. So this means, what is the service used for? What is the service about? In which situation would you use this service? So these are the type of questions that we are preparing for. This means this is a purely theoretical, knowledge-based exams. You don't need to code anything. You don't need to know how you configure specific resources. And even though this is a theoretical exam, in this course there will be a lot of demonstrations. So whenever it is possible, I include a demonstration. This is not needed for the exam, so if you are in a rush, you can also skip those demos, but I recommend to take them, because this will help you to really understand and memorize what these services are used for, because most people learn better when they are doing something and when they see something in action. So this will help you a lot to understand and memorize all of those different services. Plus, it will also give you a practical understanding. So you don't only have this theoretical knowledge somewhere in the sky, but you actually have some practical understanding, which will really help you in real life. And with this, the goal of this course is to prepare you in a way so that you are able to clear the exam with flying colors. This is how this course is designed. You will need a passing score of 700 out of 1000 points, but with this preparation in this course, if you take it seriously and also follow the recipe that I'm suggesting in the next lecture, you will be able to pass the exam with flying colors with a score of 900 plus. So this will be very easy for you, the exam, and you will achieve very high scores. You can be very confident that you will master the exam with ease. Plus, the second goal, after you have also cleared the exam, you will actually have some practical foundational knowledge that allows you to start working with Azure. So you don't only have this theoretical knowledge somewhere in the sky, but you actually do have some practical knowledge that helps you in the real world as well. And now that we have this out of the way, let's dive into the next lecture a little bit more into how the exam is built, what is important about the exam, and my recipe that allows you to achieve such a high score in the exam and master this exam with flying colors. Let's now have a closer look at the exam itself and my recipe of how you can prepare in the best possible way with this course for the exam to master this exam with ease. In the beginning of the course, we are just going to start by setting up a free trial account. You can do this also along with me, and like this you are able to follow along the demonstrations as well. Again, this is not needed for the exam, so this is optional, but it will help you, in my opinion, to learn better and also understand things in a more practical way. You will also find the exam overview. We have also seen that. In here, this is where you can find all of the information. You find the study guide. You can also book the exam in here. And don't worry, we'll see that also step by step in the end of the course, how you can book and schedule the exam. But you will also find in here free sample questions. So in here, you can just get an impression on what type of questions are expected, and we'll have a closer look at those sample questions also, of course, later on. In general, the exam will take 65 minutes of time. And from this, there will be 45 minutes dedicated just to the questions themselves. The other 20 minutes are just for preparation and setting everything up. The number of questions in the exam will range between 45 and 60 questions. And as mentioned, they are mainly about understanding the services in a broad and general way. So what is the service about? What is the service used for? Again, this will be probably still quite a lot of services that you need to remember, but we will do everything step by step. And with the recipe that you get in this course, you will master this with ease. So let's see just an example of these questions, just that you already get an impression on how these questions look like. So, for example, a question could be, which Azure feature allows you to prevent resources from being accidentally deleted? And once you've gone through the relevant lecture, you will know for sure that this can only be Azure Logs. Another question could be, if you want to quickly provision a group of identical and load balanced virtual machines, but you don't want to configure them all individually, which service would you use? And again, once you have gone through the relevant lectures about virtual machine scale sets, you know that this is exactly what they are used for. So you can see again that in here it is again asked how you use this service and which service would you use, which one is the appropriate one. And to be familiar with the exam environment, you can also just check out the exam sandbox, which you will also find in this overview page, where there is also the exam sandbox. So you can select this one, and this is just the exact exam experience. So this is of course just a sandbox, so just a simulation, but you will see this is how it looks like. So we can accept the terms and conditions. We will see the starting overview page. We have 10 questions, this amount of time. This is the score needed to pass. We can click on next, read through all of the important information, and then we are asked if we are ready for the exam. We have 8 hours and 10 questions. Of course, this is just a simulation and these are not real numbers, but we can now start the exam and see now the timer has started. This is how it will look like. So you have, for example, multiple choice questions. You have, in this case, also multiple responses. So you can check multiple questions. What you can also do is you can review some questions for later, and you will see just all of the different types of questions so that you are just familiar with the format of the exam. This can be very helpful. But now, what is the recipe? What do I recommend? How do you take this course to clear the exam with ease? In the beginning, of course, I recommend just go through all of the lessons step by step. I recommend also go through the demonstrations if you have the time. And I recommend to take about 30 to 60 minutes per day. Of course, if you want, you can take more or less than this, but I recommend to do something every day. Even if it's just a few minutes, this will make you being in the habit of going through and working on this every day, even if it's just a little bit. Afterwards, of course, there will be a lot of quizzes after many of those lessons, and this will help you again to practice your knowledge and test your knowledge. Then in the end of each module, there will be summary videos. I recommend, of course, to watch them and remember all of the important points from the summary as well. And of course, you will also get all of the slides, so you can read through them in your own pace as well. This will also help you to prepare for the exam if you can read through those again. And then in the end of this course, after all of the content, there will be also a practice test in which you can again test all of your knowledge, and there will be also an evaluation. Where are your weaknesses? So in which topics you didn't score that high. And like this, you can go through all of the relevant lectures where you have weaknesses and then eliminate those weaknesses again. And afterwards, you can be very confident that you are able to clear the exam with ease. You can book the exam as mentioned in this overview page, and we'll walk through the booking process as well in the end of the course. And this you can do just a few days before the actual exam, and then in the meantime you can again watch the summaries, read through them again, and again if you want take the quizzes, and like this you can be confident that you will clear the exam with flying colors and with a very high score. So I hope this makes you excited about the course. And then in the end, you will be able to earn the certificate. And therefore, I hope you are excited because this is the roadmap to clearing the exam and earning your certification. Hope you're excited and see you in the next lecture. So let's start with the first step and create our free Azure account. To be able to do this, we just need to Google create free Azure account, and then we can just select here this first result. So if we click on this, we get navigated to this page in here, and if we just click here on start free, we are able to sign up for our Azure account. So we can create this Azure account for free, but there are just a few limitations. And these limitations we can find out about if we also Google Azure Free Account FAQ. And in here we can select it. And this is here the terms or the limitations of this free Azure account. First of all, we get $200 credit to spend in the first 30 days after we sign up. So this amount can depend on your location, but in general it's around $200 of credit. And here for this free account, some of the products we can use for 12 months for free, and some of the other tools we can use always for free. So this is just the limitation and the options we have here with this free Azure account. But this is totally fine for us, and therefore, we'll go ahead and start with creating our Azure account. So you can sign up here using an existing Microsoft account, or you can just also create a new account. So if you want to create a new account, then you can just select this. And in here, you can just create this account and set up your email address as well. I will just use my existing account. And then I will just be navigated here to this page where I can again provide my first name, my last name, my region. And then also here we have to provide our phone number. And here we have to use one of these two verification methods. And then later on we have to also provide our credit card, but there will be no automatic charges. So even once your trial has ended, there will be no charges automatically, except if you manually decide that you want to continue and you want to use the pay-as-you-go service. So therefore, we will now first go ahead and provide here this information as well as our phone number. Also, we have to check these boxes, and then we want to verify this using here, in my case, this text method. So once I've entered this code, I can select here verify code, and then I will be navigated to the next step. So this is what we have mentioned. There will be a temporary authorization on this card, but we won't be charged unless we manually upgrade. So therefore, I will also provide here this credit card information. So once I've provided here this information, I can select sign up. And then our account will be set up, and this can just take a little while. And then our account has been created successfully. And then we can just select here the portal navigation, and then we will be navigated into the portal in Azure. This portal can be accessed by going to the URL portal.azure.com, and in here we can now set up all of our different services, make all of the configurations, and in the next lecture we just want to get an overview about this portal, because in the beginning it can look a little bit overwhelming. So that's why in the next lecture let's get started with getting an overview about the Azure Portal. Let's now talk about the so-called Azure Portal. This is where we configure all of our resources. This means if we want to use a specific service, we can create a resource, for example a virtual machine or a SQL database, and we can configure and set up everything in the Azure Portal. It is important to remember that the Azure Portal is a browser-based graphical user interface in which we can manage and configure all of our resources, all of our services. This means that any device can be used to access this Azure Portal that has a browser, for example a phone, a laptop, and it doesn't matter what operating system is used on this device. So if there is a browser on this device, we can access the portal. Let's now quickly navigate to the portal and have a look at how this works in general. If we are going in our browser to portal.azure.com, we of course have to log in into our Azure account, and there we then have this overview in the beginning. We see a couple of things in here. First of all, we have the Azure services. This means that these are the different services that we have available. And then below we have the so-called resources. Now a resource is just one specific instance of these services that we are using. For example, I want to create a SQL database. And this is when I want to create a resource from the service SQL databases. Of course, I can create multiple resources from the service SQL databases. If I want to set up multiple databases, this is what I can do. So for example, if I go to SQL databases, I see that I already have set up one SQL database in here. I can just, for example, select it, and there I could now reconfigure some of the properties of this SQL database. Of course, in the exam, it is not important. We don't need to know how we configure any specific resource. It is only important to have an overview of what the different resources or services are used for. This is all we need to know, so it is very simple for the exam. But also I want to make this course more practical than only theory, so you also get some practical understanding that you can use in real life. And this is why in this course we will also have demonstrations to make this more practical. So we will also learn a little bit about how we can set up these different resources and how we are actually using this Azure Portal well, so that we are able to navigate this. Now if we want to go back to the overview of our SQL databases, we go just to this navigation, and now we could create also a new SQL database. We can do this by just clicking on plus create, and again we can now make all of the configurations for the networking, the security and so on, or even just the basics like where do we want to deploy this to, what should be the resource group and everything, the region. So this is something we'll have a little bit of a look at later on. But now we will just go back to the home menu just by clicking here on home. So now we have seen that we have our services. These are just the most commonly used. We can go to more services to see all of the services. And these are now divided into different categories. For example, we have databases in here. I can go to databases. There are all of the database services. I can go to compute. For example, in here I find the virtual machines. Currently, I don't have any virtual machines created, but I could do this just by clicking here on create. And there I could now set up a resource of a virtual machine. So I could now define all of the properties, all of the configurations, and later on we'll also see an example of this. Let's again go back. And now we also have the same navigation in the portal menu on the left side. Actually, I want to have this menu docked, and I can configure this just by going to the settings, and in here under appearance, I can change the menu behavior to docked. I personally prefer this, so I select docked. Of course, you can also change the theme and all of the other appearances, and then I will just select apply. And now if I go back to home, I will now have this here docked, and this is convenient for me because I have all of the important services, so these are the most commonly used, and also I can see all of my resources. So for example, if I go to all resources, I have the list of all of the resources that I have created. And again, if I want to see all of the services that are available, I can go in here also to all services, and we'll see again the categories and the different specific services that we can use. And last but not least, we can also use this top search bar. And this is very convenient because in here we can search for services. For example, SQL database, I can search and I find these services. But I also find specific resources. So for example, if I want to search for one specific resource that I've created, I can also search for that and find that in here. So this is just a very brief overview of this interface. Later on, we'll work a little bit more in this, even though it is not important and relevant for the exam. But I think it will be helpful, and that's why we also want to make this a little bit more practical.